Hello, Rebecca McLaughlin here, and today I want to do a Q&A, questions and answers, about my writing history, process, and preferences. My first book, Nameless Queen, comes out in just a couple short months, less than 2 months actually. So I want to answer some questions today, some of which I've been recently asked, some of which I've been asked multiple times. Question 1, when did I start writing? I started writing and enjoying writing in the 2nd grade in like 19 something in the past, like 6, 8, I don't know. I'm in the last century. There, I've dated myself. You know how old I am approximately. I'm 27 if you're curious. But more specifically, in the 2nd grade, I started writing poetry. And I was just so intrigued by the way that music and poetry garbled up words in this beautiful way, to say beautiful things. So I started writing poetry in 2nd grade, and from a book fair, I bought a little tiny keychain notebook that was about like that big maybe, and I wrote tiny little poems in it until it got rained on or left outside or something and ruined. You know, art, like life, is fleeting. We're all gonna die in the heat death of the universe anyway, so no big deal. It wasn't until 6th grade when I started writing stories. Probably I did it a bit sooner than that for the 4th grade, but 6th grade is really the first time I remember enjoying stories and wanting to explore them more. And then when I got into high school is when I decided to write my first novel, and I did so over a 2-year period, finishing the first draft of my very first book 2 days before graduation. Because I had made some dumb promise to myself that I was going to write a book before I got out of high school, and boy did I stay up until 7 a.m. to do that. Question 2 related, what is the first story you ever wrote? So I will tell you the first story that I remember writing. Wait, no, there's 2. I remember writing 2 stories and I don't know which one came first, so I'll tell you both of them. One of them was called, I think we had a prompt. Yeah, it was a prompt in like 6th grade or something, and we had to write a story about the perfect hiding place. And so a lot of people wrote about playing hide and seek, or like hiding a cookie, or dessert of some kind. You know, a good hiding place for those things. I wrote a fictional story about a home invasion, and how I, as the main character, hid underneath my grandfather's computer desk to escape the burglar. And then the story ended. That was the long and short of it. I wasn't a paragon of excellent plotting and arcs yet. Not that I am now. The other story I remember writing, and I don't know if this one was first or second, was, oh gosh, what was it called? The Woods or Tiger or something, but I bet you'll be surprised about what was in the story. The woods and a tiger, even though the tiger doesn't live in the woods. A strong student of biological diversity, I was not. So the story was that this boy, was living with his grandma and had to go out and get firewood, even though he was told not to. And he did, and he took off his coat and left it on a branch, went off to look for firewood in a forest, like you do, got a tiger, there was a tiger, ran into a tiger, ran away, and was gonna die, except saw their jacket and found their way home. So apparently I was writing like really bad fables or like life lessons for small children when I was a small child. Don't go in the forest unless you know your way back. You might run into a non-native animal species. Oh my gosh, they were real bad. Okay, question number 3. How many, if I had to guess, poems, short stories, and novels have I written through this point in my life? Poems. Hundreds, like at least 200, and I only know that because back in high school I compiled them all into a giant single document because I had a bunch of files on my computer. So this is only counting the ones I digitized. And I did the same thing with all my stories, and back in high school I had like upwards of 100, certainly more than 100. So many, just a lot, oodles. For a while when I was in high school, I was taking part in a daily prompt. There was a prompt, and then you either wrote a 40-line or less long poem or a 1,000-word or shorter story. So flash fiction or a relatively mid-length to short poem. And this was really good for me because it got a lot of practice and I got to explore all kinds of genres, all kinds of types of writing in a relatively short span of time too. So if you like to write and you want to get better at it, I highly recommend doing prompt-based shorter works. Because ultimately, when I wrote a short story that I liked enough, that's the one I made the first chapter of my very first book. And then as far as how many books I've written, I wrote one in high school. I wrote 3.5 during college. Hold on. Nameless Queen is the 6th book that I've written. All right, so question 4. What hardware or software do I use when I'm writing? So this question also changes over time. So when I was in high school and younger, I didn't have a laptop. So I was doing handwriting in notebooks and then I would type them up on a computer at the library every day after school. Wow, like a nerd. Such a nerd. So in late high school and college, I used a laptop and I still used Microsoft Word. However, shortly after getting out of college, I sold my book and had a full-time job. My laptop died on me again. At that point, my laptops had shorter shelf lives than my cell phones, so I bought a MacBook, which I've had since then for about 4 years now. And somewhere in there, I bought a program called Scrivener, and I've used Scrivener to draft the first draft of my book, Nameless Queen, and of my upcoming second book, whose name I cannot tell you, because it doesn't have one yet. It has a placeholder title, but it's real bad, and I'm not telling you that. Now, of course, Scrivener is really good for drafting. I highly recommend researching it if you're interested, but really, when you're working with other industry professionals, and when you're doing revision, track changes, comments, you really gotta use Word. That's still the standard across the board. Question number 5. Why do I write? That's a simple question. No, it's not. It's not a simple question. It's a very complicated question with a very complicated answer, because the biggest thing to consider is that I've written for different reasons throughout my life. So I maybe started writing because it was fun and interesting, and maybe during those rough and tumble teenage years, I wrote because I needed to, because it was a way for me to process my life emotionally, mentally, and express myself. And as I got into college, not only was it fun, a way to express myself, but also it became part of my ambition. I want to be an author. I want to have that career. I want to do it for the rest of my life. I want to write books and I want to get better at writing books. So there's a lot of reasons that I write. There isn't just one, and as I have grown, so too has my reasoning for writing. And that, of course, is a great thing about this career, being an author, being a writer, is that no matter how many books I do or don't get published, no matter what level of success I manage to attain, I love doing it and I can do it for the rest of my life. No one's gonna come in and take the pen from my hand, or the laptop from my lap, or the dreams from my dreamy place. I meant head, I meant mind, actually. I couldn't think of that. You know, your dreamy place where you keep your squiggle thoughts and your desire for caffeine and all damn crazy neurotransmitters. Am I funny or am I just being weird? I can't tell. All right, so that's a little insight into why I write, how long I've been writing, what I write. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate you. Here's my most recent upload, and here is a video that YouTube thinks that you will like. As always, you can pre-order my book, Nameless Queen, which comes out in January 2020. Feel free to subscribe if you're new. I put out videos about every Saturday, about the writing process, what I write, how I write, etc. I will see you next week. Bye!